A devastating scandal just exploded across Washington. Chelsea Clinton is trapped in an $84 million USAID fraud scheme, and Vice President Vance's brutal response on national television has left America speechless. The shocking truth involves stolen taxpayer millions, secret mansion purchases, and a live TV confrontation that exposed decades of Clinton corruption like never before. This explosive video reveals the damning evidence, the Clinton dynasty's darkest secrets, and why Vance's fearless words are destroying the political establishment. The Capitol was already on edge that fateful morning. Power brokers whispered nervously in marble hallways, but nobody expected the nuclear bomb that was about to drop. The Department of Governmental Ethics, DOGE, had just released their most damning investigation ever. USA had secretly transferred $84 million to the Clinton Global Initiative. Every television screen in America lit up with the breaking news. $84 million fraud linked directly to Chelsea Clinton. The documented evidence was staggering in its detail. $3.2 million allegedly spent on Chelsea's wedding extravaganza. $11.5 million more used to acquire a massive estate. $0 ever reported to the IRS. The nation stood frozen in disbelief. Families gathered around their televisions in stunned silence. Some wept at the betrayal. Others felt their trust in government collapse entirely. Chelsea Clinton immediately went on the offensive, calling it a vicious hit job orchestrated by Trump's people. She claimed total innocence, insisting she'd never seen a dime of government funds. Her story was that her family was being crucified for helping the poor. But the evidence DOGE had compiled painted a far more sinister picture. Wire transfers, bank records, her own signature on documents. This wasn't political mudslinging anymore. This was documented theft. Meanwhile, inside the White House, Vice President Vance was reviewing the evidence himself. He wasn't angry or vindictive. He was simply determined to tell the American people the truth. What was about to happen would become the most watched political confrontation in history. The scandal spread through social media like wildfire. By noon, every major network was scrambling to get Chelsea Clinton on air. She arrived at the studio looking polished but visibly shaken. She sat down across from the host and immediately went on attack. "These are complete lies," she said, her voice sharp with indignation. "I've never received any money from USAID whatsoever. Donald Trump and his cronies are manufacturing this scandal. They hate everything my family represents. We've spent 30 years fighting for the disadvantaged. Now they want to destroy us with fabricated evidence." The studio audience gave weak applause, but something in her voice cracked. The pressure was clearly taking its toll. Behind her, massive screens displayed her lavish wedding photos. Images of her 11 million compound flashed for viewers. The host leaned forward with harder questions. "How do you explain these bank statements? What about the transaction records? Where are your tax filings for this money?" Chelsea's responses became increasingly desperate. "Those documents are fake," she insisted. "My parents have been persecuted for decades. This is just more of the same attacks." But viewers at home weren't buying it. Phone lines exploded with callers demanding answers. Social media erupted with outrage and disbelief. That's when the host made a stunning announcement. "We have a surprise guest joining us via satellite. The Vice President of the United States, Vance." The studio gasped collectively. The screen split into two frames. On one side sat Chelsea Clinton, her face draining of color. On the other appeared Vance, composed and resolute. "Good evening, America," Vance began, his voice measured and clear. His eyes looked directly through the camera into millions of homes. "This isn't about partisan politics. This is about truth and justice." Chelsea shifted nervously in her seat. Her hands gripped the armrest tightly. Vance continued without pause. "The DOE report documents $84 million transferred from USAID to the Clinton Global Initiative. We have proof of where that money went. Millions spent on personal luxuries and private estates. Not $1 properly declared for taxation. That's not charity work. That's theft from the American taxpayer." The studio fell completely silent. Even the host seemed frozen in place. Chelsea attempted to interrupt. "That's absolutely false." But Vance raised his hand calmly. "Chelsea," he said firmly, but without malice. "This isn't just about money. It's about integrity and honor. You're walking in the exact footsteps of your parents, Bill and Hillary Clinton. Footsteps marked by corruption, deception, and betrayal of public trust. You need to face the truth before it's too late." The room exploded with gasps and whispers. The audience couldn't believe what they were witnessing. J.D. Vance leaned forward slightly, his tone becoming even sharper. This isn't a witch hunt, Chelsea. This is documented evidence. Every receipt, every transfer, every dollar is accounted for. 3.2 million on a wedding celebration. 11.5 million on a personal mansion. That's not humanitarian work. That's stealing from the American people. The audience erupted in shocked murmurs. A woman in the back row wiped tears from her face. Chelsea's jaw clenched as she struggled to maintain composure. She wanted to fight back, but the evidence was already public. J.D. Vance kept his gaze locked on Chelsea, never blinking. Chelsea, you claim this is about helping the poor. Tell me which poor community benefited from your $11 million estate. Which struggling family was lifted up by your $3 million wedding? The questions landed like hammer blows. The audience gasped audibly. Chelsea's face flushed bright red. She stammered her response. That's not accurate. Those numbers are completely distorted. My foundation has built schools, funded medical programs. Vance shook his head slowly. Your foundation has been a front. The Clinton Global Initiative has collected millions in government grants for decades. Money that should have gone to struggling families. Money meant for job training programs. Money designated for veteran support. Instead, it lined the pockets of political elites. Your family name has become synonymous with greed, not generosity. The host tried to interject, Mr. Vice President, but the crowd drowned him out with murmurs of agreement. On Twitter, clips of Vance's words went instantly viral. Hashtags like #ClintonExposed and #VanceTruth exploded across platforms. Chelsea's carefully constructed defenses were crumbling. For the first time, her voice cracked with, complete ruin, but you can still choose differently. The studio was absolutely dead silent. America held its collective breath. J.D. Vance straightened his posture. His next words would echo across Washington forever. He locked eyes with Chelsea. You cannot heal the poor with stolen money. You cannot preach compassion while living off fraud. Chelsea, America does not need another Clinton pretending to care. America needs truth. The crowd gasped and rose to their feet. Some clapped in shock. Others covered their mouths in disbelief. Chelsea's tears spilled over. She shook her head, whispering, No, no, no. But the damage was done. The host finally spoke, his voice trembling. Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing something unprecedented. Social media completely erupted. Millions of comments flooded in, some furious, some relieved, all stunned. Clips of Vance's words spread instantly. America does not need another Clinton pretending to care. It was the sentence that shattered decades of political protection. For the first time, Chelsea Clinton sat speechless on live television. And J.D. Vance had just flipped Washington's entire power structure in a single breath. The producers switched the screen again, this time showing maps with glowing red dots across the globe. Hey, Nigeria, South Sudan, and more. Each dot represented millions in aid that had been promised through the Clinton Global Initiative, but never reached its destination. J.D. Vance's tone grew heavier. This isn't just about America's money being stolen. It's about the poorest people in the world being robbed of their hope. Villages promised schools got nothing but empty words. Families promised medicine buried their children instead. The audience gasped. Some wiped their eyes as the screen showed photos of abandoned lots where schools were supposed to stand. Chelsea's face twisted in panic. Those aren't my fault. We partnered with other groups. Things went wrong on the ground. Fans didn't flinch. No, Chelsea. Things went wrong in your boardrooms. Things went wrong when money meant for the weak was signed off into luxury accounts. The crowd erupted. Some shouted in anger. Others simply sat in stunned silence. J.D. Vance turned directly to the camera again, his voice firm and steady. To every American watching this tonight, understand that the $84 million from USAID was not the first betrayal. It was just the one that finally got caught. He paused, letting the words sink in. For decades, the Clinton Foundation built an empire of promises overseas. They told struggling nations they would rebuild after disasters. But the money disappeared. They told desperate families they would receive aid. But nothing ever came. This wasn't charity. This was exploitation. The tension reached its breaking point. Chelsea buried her face in her hands, sobbing openly. Her voice cracked through her tears. Why are you doing this to me? Why are you tearing me apart in front of everyone? Vance did not gloat. He did not raise his voice. He spoke with the calm of a man carrying a duty. I'm not doing this to you, Chelsea, he said softly. I'm doing this for the people who trusted you. For the veterans who needed housing. For the single mothers who needed support. For the children overseas who were promised schools and were left with dust. The crowd broke into loud applause. Some rising to their feet. Others were in tears, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Chelsea lifted her head slowly. Her face streaked with tears. The world could see her defenses had crumbled, but the vice president's eyes stayed locked on hers unshaken. And then he delivered the line that echoed across America. Chelsea, this was never about you being attacked. It was about America finally standing up to say enough. The studio roared and the nation watched history being made. Outside the studio, the nation was erupting. Crowds had gathered in front of big screens in New York, Dallas, Chicago, and Miami. Watching the confrontation live, chants rose in the streets. No more fraud. No more lies. Inside, J.D. Vance leaned forward. This isn't just about Chelsea Clinton. This is about the Washington machine that protected her family for decades. A system that rewarded failure, that looked away when taxpayer money vanished. Vance pointed at the camera. For years, agencies signed off on checks to the Clinton Global Initiative, knowing there would be no accountability. Why? Because the Clintons had power. Because Washington feared them. The audience erupted with gasps. Some clapped, others shouted angrily. Chelsea's voice cracked. You're making it sound like I run Washington. Vance turned toward her, calm, but sharp. Chelsea, you don't run Washington. But your family fed off it. And America is done paying the bill. The crowd exploded in applause. Washington's halls were shaking. J.D. Vance rose from his seat. The crowd standing with him. The vice president had turned a scandal into a reckoning. The broadcast ended, but America was forever different. In living rooms, diners, and workplaces across the country, people sat in shock. Many weeping openly. They felt justice for once. They felt seen. News anchors scrambled. Commentators argued, but one truth remained. J.D. Vance had spoken words no one else dared to. He had flipped the narrative and in doing so restored hope to millions who thought their voices no longer mattered. Chelsea Clinton left the studio in silence, escorted by aides, her head bowed. But the story was no longer hers. It belonged to the people who had just witnessed history. J.D. Vance closed the night with a line that echoed across the nation. America belongs to her people, not her elites. And starting tonight, we reclaim her. The audience roared. Families watching at home cried, clapping through their tears. My friends, you've just watched a story that shook Washington and moved the hearts of millions. If this moment touched you, if it made you cry, if it gave you hope, then don't stay silent. Smash that like button, subscribe right now, and comment below what part broke your heart the most. Your voice matters here. And for those who want to go further, join our membership to unlock powerful stories and behind-the-scenes features you'll never forget. Together, we'll keep exposing the truth and we'll keep America's hope alive. God bless you and God bless America.